Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning.
Happy Friday.
Hello.
Yeah. So, good morning. Good morning, everyone, to our session, Secure and Sovereign GenAI Platforms, Considerations from Real-World Implementations. I'm glad you could make it, and also a warm welcome to our participants from our meetup group. And today I'm really happy to have 3 data science experts in the house, and they are also close partners of AI Light. So thank you for that. And let's welcome Dr. Stefan Ravizza and Michael Wegmüller, both co-founders of Artifact, and Emma Scharfmann, AI engineer at Artifact. Glad to have you with us. Good morning.
Thank you, and good morning to you too.
Hello.
Together, they will share first-hand lessons from building and deploying CompanyGPT, which is their enterprise-grade Gen AI platform. And we have a special guest joining them. And this is Thomas Husmann. He is Senior Digital Transformation Consultant at OIZ, the city of Zurich. And Thomas and his team have been running CompanyGPT in production, and he will share what they have learned along the way. So welcome, Thomas. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. So before we start, let me give you some information about the setup. This session is being streamed live on YouTube and on LinkedIn as always, and can be accessed later on in our YouTube library. Please leave your questions in the chat and we will try to answer them during or after the session. And today we will have a 10 minutes networking session after the show, and you can stick around, get connected with others, share your projects, events or something. And the first time we will try to use a whiteboard where you can copy your things on it. So let's slide into a morning session, a morning learning session. And Stefan, Michael, Emma, and Thomas, the stage is yours.
Very cool. Thank you very much. And also from my end, thanks, Sabine, for hosting this AI Light session. It's always great to see the platform and the people coming together to talk about important stuff. So I urge you as well to have a look into the other program. I'm sure Sabine will share at the very end something what is coming up next. But right now we are talking about secure and sovereign GenAI platforms. And look, if we look a little bit through the latest reports, what we see is that the big consulting houses like the McKinseys and so on, they're all predicting or based on their analysis saying that 99% of the organizations or 78% of the organizations, depending on which report you're looking at, they are now in Gen AI. So they are building Gen AI solutions and so on. But however, if we dig a little bit deeper, what you find out that probably only 1% of these are really mature platforms. And one thought around that didn't let us go is how can we bring that from exploration and from experimentation in pilots in Gen AI towards scalable, secure, and sovereign Gen AI platforms. And this is also the reason why today we agreed to make this webinar. And we are really happy that Thomas here from Stadt Zurich, from the city of Zurich, he will share a great case study where the city of Zurich has deployed now one of these scalable, secure, and sovereign Gen AI platforms. So without further ado, Stefan, let's go quickly to the next slide. Sabine has already made the introduction, so please click next. Thank you very much. So let's move on directly, quickly, a word about Artifact. So Artifact is an AI agency. We are delivering services from implementation, realization of Gen AI platforms and traditional machine learning solutions. However, we are also supporting customers on the advisory stage. Customers are reaching out to us of any size with the question where to start, and how to implement, and then also to implement. And last but not least, we are really proud and happy to see as well happy customer faces. And one fact I think I may say, Thomas, that you are here today as well also shows that the city of Zurich is to some extent happy with us to share the story today. So let's move on. What have we packed in the menu for you today? We're gonna basically start probably more from a strategic angle, asking the question, how do we structure AI transformation? So Stefan will kick this one in a second. And then there is the big question that I see a lot of organizations are having today: should I make or should I buy? Or is there maybe a third option? So let's see. So this is also probably good insights to talk about. And then we go technically more deeper into what is actually a secure and sovereign GenAI platform. We look into the example of Zurich A, the city of Zurich solution, and then take lessons learned from this project, plus as well from many other projects that jointly with Emma and Stefan we were able to deliver. I will also come back here a little bit with organizational learning, because part of that as well is obviously the people and the adoption dimension. And then we look further beyond. So very packed. Let's get started, Stefan. Structuring the AI transformation. Over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Michi. And I hope the energy is here. Everyone is awake. Let's go into the topic. So a framework we like, originally from BCG, slightly adopted, these three kind of phases, probably you can call them everyday AI. So basically using AI for the tasks you're doing, but not really embedded in workflows, just the normal stuff you're doing, where you have probably used or started to use, 20, 30 years back, Google search, where you do this now with a chatbot, ChatGPT, or as the title suggests, probably something which is more secure, more sovereign, can also be flexible. But that's the first part, really looking at that angle. And there we have also started with the city of Zurich to go into there. But also in this case, with the city of Zurich, we have looked into specific workflows, specific departments, specific tasks, where this called Reshape AI will kick in. And there it's not just to use and copy paste something into a GenAI platform, use it, can also be Copilot and going back, but really think about the process, what a company is actually doing, and then take it from there, have a look on how does it look like if you put AI in the center or a relevant piece of it, and reshape the whole process, reshape the whole workflow. And I think that's also something to consider, especially if you look into GenAI platforms, that we are not speaking only about everyday AI. That's normally the first start, at least what we have seen with many clients. But then also look how this actually will continue. And if you choose such a platform, or if you evolve such a platform, what are the next areas which you really have to cover, or at least according to the studies, it's worthwhile to look into, because there's a lot of gain behind. The last one is then rethink AI. That's a little bit probably further out. I think it's especially hard for bigger corporates to change really the core of their business. But I think at the same time, it's important to see this will happen, most likely from the side, from startups, from spin-offs, from bigger probably tech companies entering into a different market. So that's kind of the full scale, but today it's mostly about everyday AI, and then as well, definitely reshape AI. So this has a kind of a level set where we stand and why we see this kind of GenAI platforms are really making sense. And almost every company from starting having a certain, let's say, number of people, I feel need to have something, and not just as a kind of a side project, but actually start to think about this as a core, as a capability of the organization to build on. And then the question comes, and Michi already pointed to it, like, should we make or should we buy? Like Microsoft is pushing like hell with Copilot. Like I feel that the feedback is mixed, at least what I'm hearing. You have to think about vendor lock-in. You have to think about where is this actually running, this platform, and that's what Thomas will show, a great example where everything is really local on-prem. So this is fully possible. Or you buy, and buy often means a SaaS solution, but there's missing flexibility. So in this setting of make or buy, is there something else? And that's kind of where we jump in or see a big part to bring Switzerland to the next level, or help it to advance with this kind of technology, what we call asset-based. So what it is, and how does it actually work behind? It's you don't have to develop everything yourself. Like we have a good core. We have used it, for example, for the city of Zurich, but also for other clients. So it's hardened, it's there, it's working, it can be adopted. So we can deploy that, go in fast, it's cost efficient. So you don't have to develop it at the very beginning yourself. It costs a lot, but you do not have any recurring costs afterwards, apart from the tokens. So this is, I think, a really good way to balance. It's flexible because it's yours. You can do whatever you want to. And I see now, like the city of Zurich and other clients, they have similar demands, but not always the same one, and can adapt to their process, their tooling, their IT environment. You have the full control. So sovereignty, if you want to have it, you have it on-prem, it's fully yours. Nothing goes out to, not even to Europe. And with that, we also have an ecosystem we are building, and that's, I think, also a nice thing to say here in such a networking ecosystem call from AI Lite. We want to bring Switzerland to the next level, and if several companies actually using similar technologies, this will get faster and also cheaper for everyone. So that's some kind of the idea behind. So you don't have to think about speed, flexibility, and security. Like there is no really a trade-off. I feel, at least not with this way. Where there is a trade-off, I think, is on quality and sovereignty. So we have done this implementation several times, sometimes on-prem. We'll get to it with Thomas. But you can also have it in a Swiss cloud, let's say Swisscom or Infomaniac, as some example, or then go to the big clouds like Azure, AWS, and so on. But there at the end, you have to have this kind of trade-off, like with, if you are just local on an on-prem model, you have open source model. They are very good, but probably not always the best one. But you can really make sure that the security as well as the sovereignty is fully there. And there are hybrid models, so that some stuff is actually local, and for some particular calls, you are going out and use an LLM, probably from OpenAI or Tropic or Gemini. So how such a platform can look like, and I think here I would like to start and hand over to Thomas to show a little bit the journey the city of Zurich has done. And again, if you have some questions, feel free to ask in the chat. Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefan. I'm happy to share with you today how we at City of Zurich provide generative AI tools for our employees. We have more than 34,000 employees working at the City of Zurich in 68 service departments. So beside the classical public administration, we have schools, hospitals, police, tax administration. We even have a vineyard. So you can imagine there is a lot of different use cases where those people want to use AI in their daily work, and they want to use it for efficiency reason, and they also want to use it in a secure way, and they have high quality standards as you would expect from a public administration. And we really have a challenge here, because if we want to realize the benefit of those tools, we need to be able to use our work data, which is internal, and often it's confidential or even strictly confidential. Think about patient data, police data, social insurance data. And that's why we have really strict data protection and information security requirements. So we cannot use public external AI tools like ChatGPT or Claude for this purpose. So that's quite a challenge. And on the next slide, you can see the journey we took together with Artifact. So in March 25, we took the decision that we would like, together with Artifact, provide a solution for this challenge. And we had the idea that we could use CompanyGPT for our purpose, and we called it Züria, which means Zürich's Intelligent Assistant. So in March 25, we started the project together with Artifact. At the same time, we also started the the ordering process of GPUs, because if we want a secure solution, we need it to run on our own hardware in our centers. The GPUs were then ready in May, and like about 2 weeks later, we already had our internal models ready. So that's open weight and open source models that were running on the GPUs, and you could then chat with them in the Cyria solution. When we saw that this worked, we had to prepare some paperwork and security audits to make sure that we meet the information security and data protection standards that we have. To test it out, we started a small pilot in the organization and information department of the city of Zurich with about 450 people here, and it really worked well. So then we decided we aim for the citywide rollout, and for that we had to again do some paperwork and documentation to show that our solution is really safe and secure. We started in September, and as a Christmas gift, it took some time. We got the approval from the data protection office. We then again did some last load test optimization together also with Artifact, and after the sports holiday, we then rolled out the solution to the whole city. So I think almost all of the 34,000 employees should now have access to this solution. Then on the next slide, you can see what's available now as a result of this process. Now you can see a screenshot of Cyria. It looks familiar. It looks like what you know from other solutions. You have a chat window where you can enter your prompt. You can choose different LLMs here. You can upload your document. You have a history. What's really special here, it's focused on high data protection standards. That means Cyria has no connection to the internet. It cannot conduct a web search. So you have a knowledge cutoff. That's something you have to handle. Then also for security reasons, Cyria has at the moment no access to internal data, and we do not use the input from the user to train the model or fine-tune the model. So they forget everything immediately. That's also an important requirement that we have here. And people use this at the moment. And of course, we see we have requests that people want to use their knowledge together with Cyria. They want to use those models and feed their knowledge base for that. So that's why we, together with Artifact, thought about new features for Cyria. And on the next slide, you can see what we do together or what we offer. We thought about that we need to integrate those knowledge bases and provide this to Cyria. And then there is the RAG approach, the Retrieval-Augmented Generation. Here you can see an example workflow, what we do together with the legal advisory staff. They have a lot of documents like laws, regulation, fact sheets, court rulings, and so on. Together with them, we collect them and put this in a knowledge database. So that's basically an indexing process. And this knowledge database is vector-based, so you can find similar documents in there. So now if a legal team's member has a legal question, they can enter it into Cyria. They have to first select the according use case in the user interface, but then they can ask the legal question. Then Cyria will first do a search query in the knowledge database and find relevant documents, relevant chunks of documents, and then return those search results. And now the Cyria generates an answer based on this search results, and the legal team member, they can use this answer. On the right-hand side, you can see what this looks like. You can see it's quite small, but you can see it cites some documents here. And if you would scroll down, you would even have a list of the source documents that it found. And that's something that we're really happy with, and that this legal advisory team now would like to keep for the future, and they would like to expand it to other teams. So we are really happy that we can use this retrieval-augmented generation paradigm for providing internal knowledge here. Yes, then I give over to you, Stefan.
Thanks, Thomas. Very cool, and very delighted to help the city of Zurich on this journey. You see, they put a lot of effort in that our data, the data of us citizens, is safe, is on-prem, still figuring out and kind of the ways to use this technology in the best possible way. So they have their own GPU models on site, so that they can actually host everything there and nothing goes to any other, let's say, cloud provider or any other third party. So it's really good to see. At the same time, you see there are some restrictions in terms of not, let's say, using yet the full functionality, but how this can look like, also in a secure way, and what other clients are doing. That's something I want to present in the next slide. So one feature is, for example, Google search. So Thomas mentioned it's in the case currently in Zurich that the system cannot escape and not go out of the on-prem setting. One thing is, or basically two things, the next is on the next slide. If you do a Google search, there is the possibility that you are making it explicit, so that the human at the end approves or rejects what goes out to Google. Like, it's not that no one is using Google. So I guess also at the city of Zurich, a lot of people are using Google, and that's fine. But probably it's not fine if it's automated and not tracked what is actually being sent to Google. So that's the issue. So that's why we have this kind of component in. And if you want to go to the next level, you can add to this human factor, and having the human in the loop and actually the responsibility and accountability with the human, you can also have it supported with technology. And that's where it's also very interesting to have a so-called PII filter, personal information, personal identifiable information, which has to be detected. And then you can have different actions. And as mentioned, for example, the city of Zurich has everything on-prem, but you can also think that if there are some queries which are not critical, not strict or confidential, that these queries can go out to a better model, because then you probably can benefit from some features or from better answers in a different way. But having then some kind of a component in between, looking at it, what is actually okay to go out and what is not, and hence should be processed locally or at least in Swiss cloud. So that's this PII filter. Another component we have in our asset is multi-agent. So for example, if you're discussing about an AI use case, there are probably 3 different types of people who should give input to such a use case, and that's the business consultant, someone who actually knows what they want to have. It's the AI IT architect, someone who is showing what is actually possible to build and what fits to the environment, to the IT environment of this specific company, department, organization. And then you probably have someone or kind of a group of people caring about the law, about GDPR, about ethics, all these other steps on top, which you normally have to do to have a project approved. So instead of having that and kind of iterating hundreds of times and kind of not going probably in the speed you want to, there's this possibility to have different agents, and each agent is then basically governed by a different human So like the AI architect would be from the city of Zurich, the AI, the IT lead or the architect, the lead architect. And the business is then, in this case, like with the social services, would be from their part. They all work together, and at the end, they form one output with all the input combined, but not as a magic box behind, but every single agent basically governed in its way by a human. Another one, and here I'm not going into detail, make let's say product demo and show every single feature. Obviously we can in a deep dive, but I want to also give enough time afterwards for the lessons learned, to have it on the mobile, also to use voice input. I personally prefer that much more on the mobile setting. If I'm on the way, probably do a brainstorming with such a system, and then have also an agent which helps me structuring it. So that's a different feature which can be added to such a platform. If we stick to some kind of voice or this kind of meeting minutes, also very interesting to capture meetings, potentially also seminars or webinars like this one, which then will be structured in the way you want to have it, not let's say how Copilot is doing it, but in your setting, which can also be then flexibly integrated in your processes, and linked basically, for example, with MS Teams, with the so-called MS Graph. So directly in the back to your data, you have generated. So if you click in MS Teams meeting on record, or at least on transcribe, so that's enough, then everything actually goes into the platform, or can go into the platform, and will be processed there. So that's some kind of a very common way to do it. We have also another way now, which we call Smart Canvas, which is not just doing it after the conversation, but it records it, and every 30 seconds, it actually comes up and regenerates or updates, is probably the better word, the Canvas template you have in front of you. Here again, coming back to the use case I mentioned before with the multi-agent, speaking about use case discovery, kind of shaping one use case here with the view of what is actually in scope, what are the assumptions, what are the benefits, and then below there would also be what are the technical components. So you can speak freely, and as such, and it will then structure it automatically in a way which you as a human can also absorb. How do you like Swiss German? Just see in the questions. Yes, it also is capable basically to transcribe everything from Swiss German. Like there are different models, but nowadays, especially for this kind of purpose where you don't have to have every single word correct, but you understand what is actually being said and make a structure out of it, it works for Swiss German, obviously German and English, and basically all the other languages. And also quite nicely with, depending on which endpoint you're using, that it can switch and can detect which language is used. In the case, if it's directly integrated with MS Teams, it uses the transcript, like the model there. So it depends on kind of how it is integrated, either by microphone or by a meeting directly. So this is probably a view, not everything, obviously, what is possible, but to just give you some kind of idea where it goes and how it can be integrated, and not just for this everyday AI, but also for this reshape AI, as I mentioned before. And with the reshape AI, so like here it's a canvas, it's a template about use cases, but this can also be obviously for other parts. So like we have discussed it for marketing briefing, or for a business model canvas. And so if you think about strategic work, so whatever the template is, you can basically fit it in, and it has a different angle to it, so you don't have to write, but you can speak, you can have a discussion between the humans, and then it will make you on the fly your template filled in the way you would like to have it. Exactly. So that's probably on the platform how this can look like. Now let's go a little bit deeper into what are the lessons learned. And here we split it up by Thomas first looking at the Zurich arm, And then we go Emma as a person actually doing the code, being on the ground, working, making this project happening. So more on the technical side, and then Michi will jump in also from the adoption side. So Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefan. So what are our learnings from now about 2 months of Syria in live production? First, we can see that the adoption rate is about as expected. So we didn't really know how many people will use Syria. We had some ideas because we monitor the use of ChatGPT and other GenAI tools. So we had our hypothesis how many people would use Syria, and we can see that managing expectation is key because people use those cutting-edge tools. They want to use the latest features, but we have to do a trade-off because of our high security standards. As you heard, we cannot provide the latest features yet. That means we also need invest heavily in communication and training. It's important that people know what they can do with Syria and what they cannot do with Syria, and when they are allowed to use commercial tools. And you have also to learn how you communicate with the models that we use in Syria, because they are slightly different than like a model from ChatGPT or Claude. So that's important for user adoption, and we have to communicate about the use cases and the value added that this solution could bring to the user. We have a stable level of user now after 2 months, but we would like to expand the active user base and returning user here. Also, what we learned, the journey with Artifact now is more than 1 year, and it's not a project that is finished at any time. It's more like a product. You have to refine it because there is technical development. There are user requests, user needs that you would like to build into your solution. Then Syria with Retrieval-Augmented Generation is slightly different because you have to integrate user or team-specific content, and here it's important that also the client or the user, that they are committed to work together with you and the technical team in agile ways, because you need the subject matter expert to identify the right documents. You have to then integrate it into the solution, and then you again need the business side, the subject matter expert to assess the quality and give feedback how you could improve this. And you have to do this in short iterations that you really make the use of those tools that you have here. Also, what we can see, if you already have a mess now in your documents, it won't help that you throw AI at it. So the quality of the sources is really crucial for meaningful and useful answers. So if you have an outdated document, of course, AI won't be able to correct this. So you have to invest. Also, the business side has to invest and do their homework here, that you have a good quality of the content. And what is special also in the city of Zurich, if you ask a legal question, you expect that you get a right answer, and that requires us that we still have the human in the loop for all those critical processes. AI cannot be responsible at the moment for an answer, so this has still to be a human, and that's why we want to keep the human in the loop here. That's our lessons learned from Syria, and I think I hand over to Emma now.
Thank you, Thomas. So I wanted to present you some other challenges and takeaways that I had from a technical point of view. So overall, there's more and more AI, especially Gen AI projects, but every time we kind of have the same challenges, or at least from a technical point of view, that was my feeling. So a first challenge that we have is to ensure that new features do not break existing features. So it's something that occurs for any project or any software engineering projects. But with GenAI, as everything's evolving so fast, with new tools, new features, new packages, it's harder to monitor. It's harder to keep existing features working while developing some new ones. So for that, my takeaway was, of course, to have tests, so either unit tests or integration tests, so different level of tests. And that is kind of cool because it can be done really well by AI, or at least LLMs right now are extremely good at doing these kind of tests. Of course, with a verification of the developer and the QA team. But that's really necessary. Then having rounds of UAT testers, also really important. In terms of having like testing existing features, but also in terms of having ideas of new features, feedback on the UI part, having some more user-friendly interactions on the app, on the GenAI project. So that's also quite great to do. And finally, I would say having like the load test part, which is trying to see if the solution can handle a lot of users, also very important. First, because of course you don't want your system to crash, but also because it's good to find bugs and to monitor the costs. Right now, with the GenAI projects, the costs are increasing because of the token the token usage, and we tend to sometimes see huge costs when the users are using it, especially if you have a lot of users. And so this step is really important, and it has like the usage at this part is like, I mean, it's a good opportunity to check with the prior estimations of the costs to see if everything works fine. Next slide, please. Thank you. The second challenge I wanted to talk about is the evaluation of these systems. So as the systems are non-deterministic, it's quite hard to scope, quite hard to evaluate based on some accuracy that we'd like to have at the beginning, or some goals that we'd like to have at the beginning. So it's really hard at the beginning to say, okay, I want to have this test and I want it to be working well on this specific thing. So my takeaway here was to think beforehand, before even starting the project, with the users, with the business team, about what's the goal, what's the accuracy, what's expected at the end from this system. And that can be really helpful on technical point of view, first to develop the right features, but also to know how to test it precisely. For these kind of projects, definitely testing is hard, especially when the scope of the project is broad. So when it's chatbot, users kind of think that they can do everything with it. So it has to be able to retrieve documents, to have access to internal documents, external documents, Google. So as Thomas said, scoping the project, being really clear on what it can do, what it can't, also having a training or enablement process to do that is quite useful and really helps on the adoption side. So my takeaway here is definitely to start small and then to narrow with a narrow use case, and then to extend and rebuild like new features on top of it. So one example I wanted to mention here is the rack system that Thomas already mentioned here. So we saw, for example, with Zurich, that during the testing phase, we had the rack that we wanted to evaluate, and we wanted to know how well it was working. And at the end, while doing the testing, we saw that the retrieval part was more important from the user perspective than the generation that the LLM was doing out of it. So it's something that we did not expect at the beginning. And so really thinking about what should be tested and where the accuracy should be is really, really helpful in this case. And finally, the last challenge I wanted to mention is the collaboration and the work. Next slide, please, Stefan. Do you have the last one? Yeah, thank you. Is the effort for a given project. So depending on the requirements and especially on how many users there are, the building an app can go from a day or a few days to like a whole, like few months with the whole IT team and AI team. And that really depends on the requirements and expectations and number of users. So something, I saw was depending on the size of the company and especially the state of their IT system and security system, the estimation of the effort can really change. So if the system is quite simple, they don't have many applications or network that's too complicated, the deployment part can be really small and limited. And for big companies with complicated system, it can be really long. Also because you have to collaborate with security team, IT team, governance team, the other teams that come up with a strategy with AI, the vision with AI. And so it's very important, and that's how we do an app that's going to be used by a lot of people and thousands of people, but it's also time consuming, take time. Other takeaway, I feel that the time spent on robustness work increases with the number of users. So the more users you have, the more time you have to spend on robustness. And similarly, the time spent on deployment increases with the time of the company and the number of systems already in place. Also because if you're a company with a lot of apps in production, you don't want to break everything by adding a new app. You have to think about load, you have to think about security. And from my experience in some projects, the smooth collaboration with the IT team and the stakeholder is really key. So for an AI project that involves a lot of people, security, governance, IT team, if the collaboration is smooth, it's very helpful and everything goes like really well. And so it's something to, for me at least, to invest in. So yeah, in summary, I'd say to build a good GenAI system, I would start by scoping the project, then collaborating with the team, and finally testing it correctly. Back to you, Stefan.
I think it's back to me.
Back to you.
In that sense, no problem. Thank you very much, Emma, for these insights. So let me piggyback on that one exactly. Collaboration is key, but not only collaboration in the back needs people, and people are also key to basically make sure that these Gen AI rollouts remain secure and also get successful. And here is another kind of an insight, and it's kind of still buzzing me that 70% of all of these pilots don't make it to the production. And what are the reasons for that? I mean, now we are starting to learn really on the technical side how to govern these platforms well, how to build them up in a secure way, how to monitor them. So I hardly usually say that technology is not the biggest problem. So there are measures right now that we can start to build, we can control, and we can monitor. But in order to have these platforms as well secure and successful, and also to keep them sovereign, we also need to have people who are buying into that, right? And that's basically the adoption is key. And here we have a bit of a thinking, because I feel out of my conversation with multiple customers, there is still some sort of a confusion around there what actually adoption is, because many organizations sometimes have the feeling that if they make a great training program, they make a webinar here and there and have a mandatory training that they are rolling out to their employees, then adoption is done. But it's actually not. You're just throwing some information at people, and then that you're expecting that they are changing their ways of working and their habits, right? So the training is obviously an important part to provide them how to use these tools. And I think also, in the aspect of 30A would be good, Thomas, maybe during the Q&A, you can quickly also share a word on how you have trained and enabled your people in it. But then there is also the awareness, which is basically the understanding of that this technology is not perfect yet, that there are risks associated to that. So people need to understand how that works a little bit better and then know how to use it. And then actually the big part comes with the adoption, right? So there needs to be a value in that. That the user gets. And so the adoption is the key. And Stefan, if you move to the next one, please. So we have there a very simple rule somehow on what we think, how we can drive adoption in organizations. So the first element is obviously value. So there needs to be value for the user in order to go on a platform, to leverage it. So it needs to be good enough to get a result that is usable. If the quality is not good enough, then probably you should not even start. If you're not convinced that out of a proof of technology that quality can work, don't do it. Then the second one is the ease. So this is about the integration. It needs to be integrated into existing tooling, into existing workflow, into work places, so that it is easy for users to get to the technology and to leverage it. And the last but not least is then the trust. Yeah. So it needs to be reliable. It needs to come back with good results that people can trust. It needs to be well governed and updated so that there is no old information, so that people continuously to use. And the equation that you see here, it's on purpose that it's a multiplication, because if any of these is zero, then there is no adoption. So basically we need to cover all of that, and that is only possible if we monitor. So everything starts and ends with monitoring, with having concrete targets to understand how many people are there and what's the value out of that. Because eventually, if you just put a tool there, it's actually it's not working, right? So adoption is something that needs to be embedded. And if we quickly move to the next slide, Stefan, just continue, please, and bring the slides up. And we believe, that there is no central approach that basically can happen. You cannot pull adoption, from the top down across employees and across the workforce. It's something that needs to be embedded and something that also needs to grow. If you are in a garden, you have little fields and areas, and all of these areas almost need to grow decentrally, because the value is very business unit centric in one way or another. And also the trust does not mean the same for one department as for another. And that's why we strongly believe that, some sort of a decentral program around it is the way to go ahead. So here, obviously, in the industry, very very widely known and used is the super user model, where you have per business unit a couple of super users, which basically, as a central organization team, as a core team, you care about. You give them the information needed, and they are caring on the adoption side that the value and the trust in the platform is basically made to the users. They are also taking care about the ease, so that people can really go there. So invest in these super users. They're going to be key, and these super users, this is not a voluntary part, right? So this is a strategic decision to be taken. So invest well enough into selecting the right super users that can convey the messages and also share this with a passion, but also with the right knowledge out there. Yeah. And then you need budgets for that. That's usually something that is very early on cut in programs, at least historically. I think hopefully nowadays organizations understand if there is not enough budget for adoption and for a continuous setting, and to monitor that these initiatives will fail, which is, you might have the best technology in place, the best tools built, but eventually if the adoption is not there, zero value. Yeah. And last but not least, also take care about the initial days, make there a good program, use the momentum, build the momentum. Eventually, we are here about trying to change habits of people, that people don't go to the open tools like ChatGPT or Cloud, that they're probably starting to leverage your internal platform. And there will always be the question, this is worse than what is provided currently by the best models. And guess what? Yeah, of course it is, because to some extent, these models are less strong, are less capable. So this needs to be well communicated, well governed, and well explained. Yeah. So in that sense, the platform is built once, but capability and adoption is something that requires continuous monitoring. Please take care about your people. Stefan, back to you.
Thanks. We have heard a lot. Probably can also think of more questions for the Q&A. We'll be soon there. Before we also want to give a little bit time to look into the future. It's not the future, it's already there, at least with some companies to shape about these parts. And if I use again this framework of everyday AI, reshape AI, and rethink AI, especially if we go then into the reshape AI, it's a question of what is actually a human doing and what is the AI doing or should do at the end of the day. Because you can there are ways or kind of jokes around that, like, yeah, AI will do everything, but the human has to approve it. Yes, fine, but probably we don't want to have this picture that we are overwhelmed with something we have no clue on how to look at and just have to approve. That's at least not the future I envision. So in this case, I think a good framework there is to think for every single task or workflow, who actually decides and who should act. And this is not one size fits all, that every kind of workflow will be the same, as you can see now on the next slide. So if you then distinguish each time between human and AI, and probably that's a black and white setting with a 2x2 matrix, at the end of the day, it's probably more meaningful to have a scale in between. But I guess you get it. So if we speak about everyday AI, it's mostly here. Human is deciding. Human is also executing to a quite big part, but getting some kind of an input from an AI system. You can delegate then more and more to the AI system for the execution. So that's also kind of within everyday AI where you can do it, but you can also go into other processes. And you always see there below what is then, or could be, probably should be, the human role in this process. You can also think about AI steering. So in some cases, that's also true already right now, that probably the AI is, whatever the AI is, like the tool, the intelligence is providing who is probably do the parcel sending out, or like the delivery tours, and then the human has to actually do it. So this exists already and can make sense. But again, there it's a human role to consider what is needed that it actually can work. And the last one also for the autonomous operations, like an example which is old, is credit card fraud. So if you do a payment, instantly it will be checked if this could be fraud or not. So within this process, within the split second, there is no human obviously in the loop because it doesn't work. So that's totally fine, but the human has to do the governance, the auditing, and the system design on top of it, that it works. I think this framework can help to make the right choices, and then also in a platform to choose which one you have, that you have actually this flexibility and this governance possibility to, so that it not you have to fit the process, but actually the platform can fit what you or your company, your workflow actually needs. So this is right now somehow our thinking, but I guess we also would like to encourage you to think a little bit more and get some feedback back. Michi.
Yeah, thank you very much. In that sense as well, we have been started to think about what are, your purposes, how do you use it, where do you see the value in that, and that's why we have built up the platform pulse around Gen AI. This is a survey that we have started about 3 weeks ago as part of the Generative AI Zurich session this year. So the survey is still open. We are looking to probably have in the next 2 to 3 weeks additional submissions made so that we can generate as well some sort of a Swiss specific point of view where we are and where then also you are in case you're interested to learn about your position then in here. So please make sure to scan or to click on the link. We will share as well as shared before the recording and the slide deck after the session to join this one. Probably also in light of that one, for those of you who are interested to dive a little bit deeper on GenAI platform and looking also into agentic ways, there is an upcoming webinar that we are doing together with AWS, which will be early June. So the dates have been shifted now. So if you're interested, please make sure you're sending either Stefan or me a quick LinkedIn message or an email so that we can put you on the invitee list in case you would like to. Stefan, next slide. And I think, yes, with that, we are more or less ready for question and answer sessions. Basically, there has been one or the other question in the chat. Many of them have already been answered. So thank you for being such an active community. Maybe let's start with the first one from Jonathan Brunel, who is basically asking about the delivery method, whether we use AI DLC, which is also to some extent an Amazon methodology. We are a bit more of IBM background. So Stefan and I, we are both co-founders at IBM, and that's why we have been grown up with the very old and well-known CRISP-DM method, which have obviously continuously renewed. But maybe Stefan, you want to say an additional word around some of the delivery methods that nowadays we are leveraging in order to build and extend the platforms?
Yes, so thanks. Yes, we are aware of this. At the end of the day, I'm not saying like which one is the best or you should pick. I think there are several ones. And for us, it's much more important, like where is the client and do they have actually a framework to be used and not bring something in just for the sake of it. So often this is in line with what is already there, or otherwise we bring in mostly like not a framed framework, which is kind of published out there, but based on our lessons learned. That's normally how we bring in this pragmatism and this agility we have in our DNA.
Very good. Then secondly, I would like to dive deeper again quickly with Thomas on a question still around Swiss German, right? Have there been any sort of feedback around Swiss German? Do you feel it's being used now the 2 months that the platform is live? Is there any? Because my personal point of view is that these models are starting to get very good with leveraging also Swiss German. But I guess as part of your AI adoption program, you're also explaining to people how to best speak with Zurich A. Can you share a bit of a light on that, Thomas?
Yeah, at the moment, speaking with Syria is a requested feature, but we do not provide it at the moment. So we don't really know whether how the model will handle this. But in other projects, of course, we also have transcription solution, and there we can see it performs really, really well. And often it's a handful of models everybody uses. So I'm quite confident that once we will enable speaking with Syria, it will handle this really, really well.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that. In addition, maybe a bit more of an initial technical question here from Camillo around physical asset management. And I think it's an interesting a tweak here because originally looking into the sort of lessons learned, we have been focusing quite a lot around the digital asset and the digital hardening and the digital robustness of such a solution. But what are the sort of consideration from a physical point of view, Thomas? Is there something you can share with us as to how these processes would run, probably also traditionally run at the OIZ in Zurich?
Yeah, then maybe next time I should bring my colleagues with me because we are very specialized. We have specialized teams that handle the whole hardware stuff. We have two redundant centers, data centers. So we have a specialized team there, and that's great for me because I don't have to consider. I can rely on them that they work really properly. But of course, we had it was our first time that we have those big machines with those GPUs in it. We have like three servers that we use now, and we had some learnings like that you cannot put that many machines in one server rack because of the heat production and so on. But if this really if someone wants to know more, please write to me and I can organize a short follow-up with my colleagues here.
Perfect. So please, Camillo, get in touch with Thomas for more information around that. I'm looking into the chat. I think there have been a couple of other questions also in terms of return on investment and size. I think they have been addressed and answered. And yes, there is now also quite some good opportunities and growing capabilities, which I would say standard AI software that organizations are leveraging, such as well as Copilot. In that sense. So we have seen as well more solutions and more opportunities in there as the stake there is also evolving. I feel it's a bit of a different question, right? One piece here is obviously to leverage something that organizations have already deployed and trying to build a solution in that. While here around a pretty secure and scalable and sovereign platform, we have totally different sort of objectives to follow through in that sense. But having said so, from a capability point of view, if you're interested, maybe next week, we will have a session together with Helvetia Baloise. Talking about the particular solutions built in there, which also is pretty cool. And I know here also in the room, we have Daniel Lochmatter, who has done multiple such solutions. So please reach out also to him in case you want to dive very deep into the Power Automate and Microsoft Copilot suite. Are there any other questions?
There's one more, probably for Thomas, on the Serie A RAG case, plans to add other assets other than just the legal one.
Yes, we have a lot of requests at the moment. So we started with the legal, and we learned that maybe the legal topic is one of the most difficult because it has a very, very specific language, and it cites a lot of laws and articles, and it has to be very precise. And of course, we also have other areas. So you can imagine with all those 68 service departments, we have requirements from adding like internal HR documents to RAG or in the city of Zurich, we have to write all those documentation for if we initialize projects like data security data protection, that there we can feed in all those information and documents, and then Cyria would help us to write those documents. So we have a lot of ideas and challenges. How do we prioritize them, and how can we enable all those people to do it by themselves? Because now with the RAG extension that we developed together with Artifact, it's more like a self-service solution. So if those people invest like 1 or 2 hours in a training, they are able to build it for themselves in at least the easier cases.
So thank you very much. I think I'm taking over, Michi. It's okay. And I think you have to switch to another call, right, Michi? So thanks to you at that point. So there's one question coming in, but maybe we stick to the time. And I would like to thank you all for sharing your insights. Very interesting. And I was really surprised about the tight project schedule with the city of Zurich. So chapeau on that. So thanks again for sharing your insights, and thanks to our guest. And I will stop now the recording, and then we can move over to the networking session. Have a great day. I'm switching